It's pretty cool stuff, and you're definitely using Git for stuff like this. So I figure, you know, I can give some insight to you guys and help you out with your own personal journey with Git and GitHub. So let us get started with the agenda here. So I'm going to walk you through kind of just like explain the differences between what is Git and GitHub. I'm going to also walk you through a little bit about installing Git and creating a GitHub account. And we're going to do a little bit of a walkthrough of GitHub, just kind of see the UI and just kind of get familiar with what GitHub looks like and, you know, how to use it. And then I'll walk you through some common workflows. And this is going to be the majority of the presentation here, is because, you know, these are going to be where the Git commands are, and effectively using them to you know, make your record keeping very efficient and much less of a headache than and then at the very end, we're going to do a little bit of a Kahoot game. It's going to be lots of fun. So let's get started with what is Git and what is GitHub. So actually, wait, let me just present. Sorry about that. Make a big screen. So, all right, perfect. So what is Git? Git is software that's used by the industry to kind of keep record of the development of a software project. Now, and the beauty of Git is it's flexible, and it allows companies to be very versatile with how they, you know, implement their workflow with their projects. And so, and that's kind of the reason why a lot of companies adopted Git, and it's classified as version control software. So basically, you know, when you're applying for co-op and PEP, one of the things that they're going to probably require you to know about or be familiar with is knowing what version control or being familiar with some form of version control. And what that just basically means is, like, are you familiar with Git, and are you familiar with connecting to like a remote repository? In this case, we're going to be connecting to GitHub, but it doesn't necessarily have to mean GitHub. But essentially, that's just the gist of when they ask you be familiar with like version control. This is what they're basically talking about. And the underlying structure of Git is like a tree-like structure. Now, it's not entirely a tree because branches can merge and stuff like that. And so as a result, there's like a cycle in it, and it's not technically a tree, but it looks like a tree, right? So, but basically every node in that tree is like a snapshot of your code at a specific time in history, and it contains information about who made the changes, like what changes were made, like a message, so a person explaining their changes, and like their commit ID, which is this big long number, alphanumeric string. To kind of just give it a unique identifier whenever you want to reference it later in the project. Just give me 1 second. So what is GitHub? So some people might have a confusion, like thinking that Git and GitHub is the same thing, but in reality, it's not. So GitHub is a platform that allows you to host your Git repositories in the cloud. And so you can see other people's repositories as well. And that's the beauty of open source, right? You can see everyone's code, and you can kind of contribute to them, and they can contribute to your projects as well. By forking the project, or even just like, you know, cloning the project and, you know, syncing their changes with your repository. Other platforms similar to GitHub is Bitbucket and GitLab. And Bitbucket has the ability to create free private repositories if you're like a team below 5, I believe. And GitLab has a lot of DevOps features along with your repository hosting. So if you're like, you know, it depends on what you're looking for in your project, you know, but GitHub is a very like widely used platform because it's easy to use. The UI is very friendly, you know, it's not like daunting. And so that's why a lot of people gravitate towards GitHub. Now, one thing I do want to mention, GitHub has this fantastic developer pack for students, which contains tools. It contains credits for various like hosting platforms. So like Heroku, for example, and they give you credits. So, you know, if you wanted to kind of make a project and ship it out to people and actually have it in people's hands and make something of that, you can use these credits and tools to kind of help you in ways that you possibly couldn't have imagined, right? So it's fantastic, and I highly encourage, if you haven't already gotten a GitHub student developer pack, you get it ASAP. It's fantastic. All right, so installing and creating a GitHub account. So one thing about this section is I'm not necessarily going to walk us through the entire process. I will talk to you about how to install and how to create your GitHub account. But the thing is, like, if we kind of have everyone trying to install GitHub, if they haven't already, we're going to run into some issues in terms of, like, you know, some people might have installation errors, and I don't want to like spend too much time on that because we're here to talk more about how to use GitHub. Definitely, you know, like after this presentation, definitely, you know, go through the installation process, create a GitHub account if you haven't already, and then refer back to this content because it's going to be useful afterwards. All right, so I'm going to walk you first through installing Git. For Windows, you're going to want to go to Git for Windows. You can Google search it too. It'll show up as the first result. And you can click on the download button and just follow the recommended process. And when you finish the process, to use it, you're going to want to use the application called Git Bash. It's basically a bash terminal with Git installed in it. And then you basically access it like a regular like Unix terminal on Mac and on Linux. So pretty much, yeah, that's the program I recommend you guys using. There's a GUI, but it kind of, you're better off using the bash. It's just, you're going to be familiar with the commands. And most people at, like, you know, at co-ops and PEPs, they're going to be using the terminal as opposed to the GUI. For Mac, if you have Xcode already installed, you're going to have Git installed, but you can try using the command called git -- version to see if you already have it installed. Now, if it isn't installed and it requires you to install Xcode command line tools or something like that, just, you know, install it and you'll have Git installed as a result. Otherwise, if you don't have Xcode installed, you can follow the guide on Git SCM. They're like basically the one-stop shop for any Git related resources, and I highly recommend you access, like, you know, if you ever have questions, you go to them. It's kind of like one-stop shop. All right, let's move on. So to create a GitHub account, you just go to GitHub and you sign up, and you basically, they'll walk you through the process, asking you to kind of like explain, are you a student? Are you someone that's working at an organization and stuff like that? And then it'll ask you about your goals. Like, what are your goals? Are you planning to, you know, produce like a product to be released and, you know, shipped? Or are you just a student learning how to use Git, or are you just learning, or you want to be like a campus ambassador? So like basically teach others how to, you know, use Git and GitHub. But yeah, so then afterwards, you know, you can apply the student developer pack, whatever you can. And yeah, and then afterwards, you know, you can refer back to this presentation if you want to kind of get reference to anything that we covered today. All right, so I'm going to walk us through GitHub a little bit. So just give me 1 second. Let me pull up my, yeah. All right, let us, 1 second. Okay, so let me walk you through, basically, this is what GitHub looks like when you have an account and you kind of have some things going on. On the left side is going to be your profile, like, you know, and then the repositories that you've been working on. As you can see, I have, you know, a bunch. Some of them I have, I've, you know, some old projects, some of them are recent projects, and so on and so forth. And then in the middle here is going to be like activity that people that you followed, or repositories that you starred or watched. And I'll cover that shortly after. And then basically this is like a news feed. It's like everything that's happening, right? And so, as for example, 14 days ago, someone starred my particular repository that I worked on. And repository is just another word for just saying it's like a software project that's being tracked by Git. And we call it a repository. It's like aggregate information about the project in one place, right? So basically, and then we can, hold on 1 sec. This thing, the presentation thing is in the way. Okay, so now on the right side, it kind of gives you the ability to kind of explore repositories that based on like things that you've been working on, the repositories that you liked and cloned and, forked and so on and so forth. And they will, you know, they'll make recommendations like, you know, since you worked with PHP, we recommend taking a look at this. This is something very similar, right? And so, and then one other, so now looking at your profile, this is a fantastic way. So if you don't have GitHub, I recommend you do get GitHub, because this is a fantastic way for employers when they're looking at things that you've done. This is a fantastic way to kind of make a portfolio, and it's like, here are things that I've been working on, and then they can see how often you contribute. I mean, yeah, my contribution table's a little bit oof, but it's like, I mean, I am currently working right now, so I don't really have much time to contribute to my own repositories or any other repositories. But for the time being, like, I mean, you can see that, I'm showcasing all the projects that I've been working on recently. And then basically now let's get into more so the basically what a repository looks like on GitHub. So just give me 1 second. I'm gonna click on repositories. So if you've taken CP372, you're going to be familiar with this. This is the network simulator code that we worked on. And basically, this is what a repository looks like on GitHub. And you can see here is basically the the entire project folder structure. And it showcases your branches that are currently in the project, in the repository, sorry. And what else? Here, this button shows you like cloning the repository, which I'll get into later. This is where, issues. So basically, if you have bugs, if you have feature requests, to-dos, this is where you can make the issues. And there's a lot of cool things, and I'll definitely cover that later as well as we get through the Git workflows. Another cool thing is pull requests. So this is when you're merging branches, and let's say, for example, you're working on, like, you forked someone's repository, so making like a duplicate copy of what's it called, like of someone else's repository, and you want to contribute back to that original repository. You can make a pull request so that that original repository pulls any changes that you've made to your own version of that repository. So that, like, I'll cover a little bit more as we go through the Git workflows. I'm just trying to showcase to you guys like what the UI looks like, and what kind of features exist that you can utilize for your own projects, that like making your workflow more effective. So project boards is also a really cool thing. You can create, it's very similar to Trello if you've ever used it. And basically, you can have cards in like columns, right? So like to do, like in progress, completed, and so on and so forth. And it just helps with organization and collaboration, so everyone knows what like everyone's working on at the same time. Wiki is also a really cool thing that you can use. It's basically like creating your own documentation for the code that you're writing. And it gives people, whoever like, wants to contribute, they can kind of like, go here and kind of get resources as to like, okay, well, how do I set up my environment? How do I, what's it called? Like, how do I clone the repository? How do I, push to this repository, and so on and so forth. And then security, this is just more related to like the security aspect, who do you allow to push to your repository, and so on and so forth. Now, Insights is a really cool tab. When you go down to network here, it shows you the Git tree of the entire project. And this is really useful when you want to kind of see, what branches exist, which branches have merged. And it kind of just, it gives you an entire timeline of like the project. And so this is a really nice way of just kind of seeing visually the changes that we're going to do in the terminal here. So, and then settings is more related to kind of just your repository settings. One other cool thing is this GitHub Pages. So basically, if you want to host a static, like if you want to just host a basic HTML, CSS, JavaScript website, you can do so here. This is a really cool way of just kind of hosting your site without actually having to pay it like a dime for hosting. And it allows you to kind of put yourself out there. So for example, if you want to make like a personal site for while looking for a co-op in PEP, you can do so with GitHub Pages. And I highly recommend, if you want to look into this more, just look up GitHub Pages on Google, and just follow the GitHub guides and stuff like that for how to set it up and get it going. But yeah, so that's pretty much what like GitHub looks like. But for the most part, code is going to be the thing that we're going to be looking at the most. It kind of just gives you an overview of like what the repository looks like. So yeah, let me see. I have some things in the chat. Let me just see what's going on. Explain the terminologies like cloning. Yeah. So yeah, I will. Yeah. Sorry, that's another thing. Basically, yeah. So this is the overview of the repository, and this is something that we're going to be referencing as we go through these Git workflows. So now let me go back to the presentation. Sorry about that. All right. So now common workflows. This is like the juicy part, right? Like this is basically, this is going to be where we, you know, how do we clone a repository? How do we merge branches? How do we collaborate with others on the same repository? How do we undo changes? How do we, you know, like, what's like the common workflow that, you know, suggested for Git? So definitely a good section. All right, so initializing a project. This is probably something that everyone's going to do. If you're working on a personal project, this is definitely going to be one thing that you're going to be doing. So I'm just going to quickly walk you through it. Then I'm going to show you a live demo. So basically, you're going to want to create the repository on GitHub. And then after creating the repository on GitHub, you're going to want to clone that repository to your computer. So this is just basically saying to GitHub, hey, GitHub, can you please give me a copy of that repository and put it down onto my personal computer, right? And so now, and then we're going to make changes. And then afterwards, we're going to check the status of the, what's it called, of the repository. So basically any changes that haven't been tracked, and basically, you know, what changes are like being tracked. And then, and basically when I say that, I mean, it's just like, so every like commit is like this like snapshot of the code, right? And before we do a snapshot, we want to stage some things. And this is where this like status, it comes into play. Is basically, it's telling us, okay, these changes have been put into this snapshot. These changes haven't been put into the snapshot. And then it's like, okay, and then when I want to add stuff into it, I just use the git add command, and it's going to put that into the staging area. And this is just basically, I'm adding more things into kind of this snapshot that will be committed and then pushed up to the GitHub. And then basically, yeah, commit, basically that's just like, okay, I'm happy with what I have. I'm going to, I want you to kind of create the snapshot and put it into the Git tree. And then git push is just like, okay, then I'm telling Git, hey, Git, take this commit and push it up to GitHub. And then that's basically like pretty much you've initialized the project and you are now already starting to contribute to the project. Now, yeah, if the repository exists and you want to continually make changes, then you're going to want to start from step 2. And then as you make changes to the project, oh, sorry, if the repository exists and you want to contribute it to the, sorry, then you're going to start from step 2. So like basically if someone else has like a repository somewhere on GitHub, then you can clone it. But let's say, for example, you've already done the cloning and you want to make the changes like continually, then you're going to repeat steps 3 to 7. All right, so now I'm gonna walk you guys through how that looks like. Just give me one sec. So on GitHub, we want to make a new repository. So basically, you're going to click on the plus icon here, and then you're going to click on Use New Repository. So now GitHub is going to walk you through the process of how to create the repository. And basically, I'm just going to call it test repo just for the sake of it. Description is optional. This is more so if like someone's looking into your repository, like just give them a brief like synopsis of like what the project is. For now, I'm just going to leave it blank. So basically, you have 2 options here. You have a public you can make your repository public so other people can see your repository. And then you have the private repository, which is like more so, this is more like a closed repository. Only specific people have permissions to see this repository. And this is basically like, you know, if you're a company working on GitHub, this is probably what you're going to be using, like a private repository. But if you like, basically, if you want to make it open source, you just make it public. So to make cloning easier, you're going to want to initialize this repository with add a README file. This is where it's like a file that kind of explains the project as well. But it's also a nice way to kind of already have something on that like repository on GitHub, and then you're able to like basically clone it onto your computer. So, and then basically that's it. And then we can create the repository. So yeah, just give it a second. And here we are. We have our repository and it's ready to go. So if we wanted to clone this, I'm going to take the code here. And as you can see, you have a few options. So we're going to use the HTTPS option because SSH requires a little bit of setup to do so. It said like it requires you to set up like private keys and whatnot. And like, again, it's like the whole setup process. I don't want to like waste too much time on like setup. I want to show you guys like how to use GitHub and Git. So basically, we're going to copy this URL, and then I'm going to open up my terminal. And then basically, so if you guys don't already have like terminal on like a hotbar, so basically that's like you open up Launchpad and it's within the other folder. And then basically in here, terminal is here, right? So that's if you don't already have, like if you don't know where your terminal is, it's here. So to get out of here. And now, okay, so let us move into, I'm gonna just clone this to my desktop. So we're gonna start here, CD desktop, and okay. And then I'm going to do git clone. And then I'm just gonna paste the URL, and it should clone the repository onto my desktop. And I'll show you right now on my desktop. 1 second. So it shows up here, test repo. Now I have another folder called Bob. This is gonna be more so when we like start talking about collaborating, but for the time being, we just have test repo. And and when I open up test repo with Visual Studio Code, yeah, so I use Visual Studio Code for any like personal projects. I like it, it's nice. But yeah, so I'll open a folder and we're gonna open up test repo. It's gonna show us like all the files in there. And one cool thing about VS Code is it allows you to, it kind of gives you some like, it gives you a nice graphical view of like, you know, what branch are you working on? So like what branch you would be working on, it shows up here. And then like, it'll also show you like what changes you've made and if there's a conflict, like if there's a merge conflict, which I'll talk about later. If there's a merge conflict, then it'll, what's it called? It'll show you in a graphical way how to like, you know, which one to deal with. But for now, I'm just going to show you what's it called? The folder. So I've opened up test repo and it has the README file, right? And it has that one particular line. Perfect. Now, and so we've successfully cloned the repository. So now what we want to do is we want to basically see the status, right? So what is the status of the repository, right? So, oh, sorry, I'm in the wrong folder. My bad. Test repo. All right. So I'm going to clear this. Let's make this a little bit bigger for you guys, actually. Let me know if you guys can see the text. If you can't see it, I'll try to zoom in more. Okay, perfect. Awesome. Thank you, Abdul. So yeah, basically now in the test repo, I'm going to type in git status, and it's going to show us that we're on this particular branch called main, and it's up to date with the branch in the GitHub repository. now when I make changes, this is going to change. So for example, if I want to say hello world, right, and save this change, the first thing it's going to, VS Code shows me, oh, you've modified this file. It's yellow, right, as for modification. But you can also see that in the terminal. Sorry. You can also see this in the terminal by typing in git status. And it'll show you on branch main, your branch is up to date. But now it's showing you something different. It's saying, okay, so these are changes that are not yet staged for a commit. And then it's going to give you options like, do you want to add this file? Or do you want to kind of discard these changes? But let's say, for example, I want to make a contribution and I just want to push this. So basically, what I'm going to do is I'm going to type in git add. Now, to add in a specific file, I'm going to take this file name right here, and I'm going to copy it. I'm just going to paste it here. And basically, what this is going to tell Git is, again, please take readme.md and prepare it for staging. So prepare it to be put into that snapshot. So you can imagine a snapshot as like a circle, right? And I have all these these files that have changes in them. And I'm telling Git right now, take readme.md and put it into the circle. And this circle is going to turn into that node that you see on the trees in Git, right? And so right now, I'm just going to say git add readme.md, and it's added it into that circle now. It's ready to go. So if I do git status again, it's going to show me that, hey, it's in that circle now. It's ready to be committed. Now, I want to commit this change and actually put it into that Git tree. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do git commit. And there's two ways to do commits. Basically, if you just type in git commit, it's going to open this big, I have it open V, but it could open up Vim if you have it. But essentially here you can type out like the title and the actual, like a kind of excerpt explaining what changes you made. But because my change is a little simple, I'm not gonna really make a big paragraph. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to just type in WQ. This is how you get out, like you write and then you save and quit, right? So basically now because it was an empty commit message, it's gonna abort the commit, but I'm gonna type in, this is the second way that you can do it, which is -m. And essentially, here I'm just telling Git git commit command. I'm telling it here, I'm going to append a message to this command that I want to use as the title of this commit, which is going to show up when we commit it to the tree. Because when we refer back to that commit sometime later in the future, that title is going to show up. So I'm going to just say added sentence, right? And when I do that, it's going to commit it. So I've essentially taken that snapshot and I've put it into the tree. And this is now ready to be pushed up into the GitHub. Now, when I say push it up to the GitHub, there's another term that we usually refer to. It's called the remote repository. And the reason why we call it remote is just because it's remote, right? Like it's away from us. It's not actually physically here with us. So when I start referring to remote, that's usually what I mean. It's just I'm referring to the GitHub repository. So now that I've committed these changes, I want to push it up to the remote. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do called git push. And because we've cloned it already, GitHub already knows that which remote repository we're pushing to. And that's the beauty of kind of creating the repository on GitHub first and then cloning it. Because a lot of the intermediate steps to connect the two repositories has already been done for you. And it kind of makes the initialization of your projects a little bit easier. You don't have to like worry about, oh, like I got to connect the remote with my local. This way, it's just kind of a little bit more easier. So when I type in git push, it's essentially taking that, like it's basically taking my repository and it's telling Git, hey, there's this new change that I want you to add into your repository tree. And it's done it here. And now when we go back to the browser, just one second. Gonna open up our repo here. And when I refresh the page, we have a new line. It's called hello world, right? My change has been pushed, right? And so now, as you make continual changes, basically you're going to go through the same steps, right? Steps, basically, if I want to make another, like another line, right? Let's add in this is markdown. Don't worry about this, but test heading, right? Or something like that, right? So I'm going to make a save. And now when I go back, right, I'm going to do git status again. And it says, hey, look, I don't, these changes are not yet staged for a commit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do git add. And one cool thing about adding files, you don't need to necessarily, so let's say, for example, there's more files that need to be added. You don't necessarily have to go one by one doing git add. One way to kind of just kind of cut corners is just do git add dot. What this does is it says, hey, Git, can you just add all of the files that, basically all the changes that are not staged for commit, basically all of these files here that are red, put them all to be staged, right? So you don't have to type out every file. It's just kind of easier, right? So now when I do git status again, you now see that the changes, like basically all the files, but because there's one, you only see one. But I can, for example, what I can do is I can create a new file, and let's just call it another file, .txt. Don't forget. And yeah, so then I'll just be like, hello, world. This is another file. So you can see that I'm only working with like TXT files, but essentially this will work with like any type of file. And so like, you know, like for example, HTML, CSS, JavaScript, PHP, Python, Java, and so on and so forth, like any file type, it will recognize. So, but I'm just showing this here just for like the brief, like just so that we're not lost in the complexity of it. I just want to showcase like the key fundamentals here. So yeah, so let's save these changes. Now, when I go here and I type in git status, right, it's showing basically these are the changes that are already being kind of ready to be committed, but these changes have not yet been committed. So what I'm going to do just to showcase the git add dot capability, I'm going to just kind of do that command right here that's saying git reset head. So I'm just going to do git reset head and then the name of the file, which is going to be readme.md. Just 1 second. Perfect. Okay, so it's unstaged those changes. Now it's gone back to just regular changes. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to do git add dot. And now it's when I do git status again, both changes have been ready to be staged. So it's kind of like an effective, like an effective tool to just kind of make things easier, right? If you have like a long list of changed like documents and like, you're not going to want to go through every single one of them, right? And this is going to help you out a lot by just doing git add dot, and boom, all the changes are ready to go. So, and let's say I want to commit these changes. So I'm going to add it to the tree in our local. So again, local repository means basically the Git repository that is on your machine. So when I say remote, that's the repository up in GitHub. And when I say local, that's the repository here on my computer. And so basically right now, when I do git commit -m, so I'm basically added file and new sentence, right? This is basically, I'm telling Git, hey, add it into my, added into the local repository or committed into the local repository. And it's committed. Fantastic. Now, I want to push it up to my remote. Pretty much just type in git push and you are good to go, right? And it's pushed it. So if we go back to the repository and I refresh the page, I should see basically another file. Fantastic. We've got our changes pushed. And that's pretty much how you're going to initialize. So let me just recap again. You create the repository on GitHub. It'll walk you through kind of like what you need to, like the name of the repository. Do you want to make it public or private? Do you want to initialize this repository with like a README? And you definitely want to select and initialize with a README. It'll make the process easier for cloning. And then basically afterwards, yeah, you go to this code button, you grab the HTTPS URL, and then you type in the command git clone with the URL, and it will take that repository, duplicate it, and put it on your machine or your computer. And afterwards, then you're going to follow. Basically, you're going to do git status, make sure everything is okay, and then you're going to start making your changes. And then afterwards, you're going to do a git status again to make sure to see what changes haven't been yet staged. And then you're going to add those changes that you want to be staged with that little git add dot to make things easier. If you have a lot of changes and you want to commit, again, you want to put them all into the commit. And then you're going to commit those changes, and then you're going to push those changes to update the remote repository with your changes. Perfect. Now I'm going to go back here. I'm going to put this back up here. And let us move on. So yeah, demo. So when you're working with others, this is a very, very, very important thing. You want to make sure that your work is synchronized with their work, right? Like they have your changes, you have their changes, and that you guys work kind of in harmony, because lots of merge conflicts can show up. And this is just as a result of like not communicating with your teammates or other people that are contributing onto your repository, right? Like people are working on the same thing as you are, right? And then Git, as a result, when they're trying to bring together those changes, Git is going to be like, well, I don't know what to choose, right? Like I don't know who's right. Like you're going to have to deal with it, right? And then you will have to deal with it. And then if you guys are working on so many changes, you can imagine such a headache, right? Like you got to go through every single conflict and resolve it. So again, knowing how to, knowing how to synchronize your work with others is going to help you out a lot in the long run. So basically, to work with others, you're gonna, so again, if you haven't cloned the repository, clone the repository, and then you're gonna make the desired changes to the project. Now, you're going to also pull the change. So what you wanna do as well, as you're making changes, you wanna do the git pull command. Git pull, what it does is it tells the remote repository, hey, can you bring down any new changes made to the repository since the last time I've pulled from you? Can you bring those down to me? And what it'll do is it'll update your repository with all the new changes. Now, what will happen is sometimes you're going to deal with merge conflicts because someone is working on the same thing as you are, right? And when you do a git pull, it's going to be like, well, sorry, sir, these two changes are conflicting. I'm going to have to kind of like, you're going to have to deal with it. And then you're going to make that commit, like, then you're going to commit those resolved conflicts. And I'll show you, there's like another slide with this, but yeah. And then after dealing with those merge conflicts, you're going to just follow the same pattern here: git status, git add, git commit, git push. This is like the pattern that you're going to follow. Whenever you're making changes, you're going to status, then you're going to add these files for staging, then you're going to commit that, and then you're going to push it up to the remote repository. And then every once in a while, as you're working, you're going to want to pull in new changes. So yeah, merge conflicts is basically, it happens two times, like in two places. You run the command git pull, and the newest changes are modifying something that you've also changed. And then basically another scenario is basically when you're merging branches, and I will talk branches after this. Basically, merging the two branches, in those two branches, there are two, very different, like let's say the same line of code is being changed. And when you merge the two branches, it's going to be tough for Git to determine who is right? And so that is also another scenario where you'll come up with a merge conflict. Okay, so how do we fix the merge conflicts? So merge conflicts will, so depending on what text editor you're using, so for example, VS Code is going to kind of graphically show you the conflict in a way that like it's easier for you to understand. IDEs too will also have something like that to help you out. Now, if you don't have that, what you can do is you can type in the git status command, and it will tell you, hey, these files have merge conflicts. And then you go through every single one of them. And when you open up that file, the conflict will look like something like this. Like Git will input this type of text between the two changes to ask you basically, do you accept your changes or do we accept the remote changes? And then basically, depending on what you choose, you're going to remove everything else. So basically, if I wanted to choose the current code, oh, sorry. Let me go back. So if I wanted to choose my current code, I would remove this, this, and this. And I would only leave my current code. Now, if I wanted to accept the remote changes, then I would just take this and then remove everything else. Like this would be removed, this would be removed, this would be removed, and this would be removed, right? And that's how you would resolve a merge conflict. And when you're done all that, you're gonna, again, do git status, and it's gonna show you the, basically, all of, like, again, it's like similar to how you're making changes regularly. It's gonna say, okay, well, I've noticed all these changes. Do you wanna put them ready to stage? And then we're gonna commit, and then you're gonna wanna commit them after to kind of basically to completely resolve the merge conflicts. That's like telling Git, okay, I've chosen all the changes that I want to be correct, and I'm now going to commit it into the tree. And then Git is going to go from there, depending on those depending on those merge conflicts that you have resolved. So I'm going to show you. It may seem a little complicated, but I'm going to show you. It's yeah. And so then after, yeah, demo. So let us get right into it. Okay, so that's the reason why I have Bob. Bob is going to be this other person that is going to also commit to the repository. So basically, I will now go to, I just have to switch. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to clear this. So I'm going to cd into, so I'm in test repo. So I need to get back out into the desktop. And now I'm going to cd into Bob. And now in Bob, I'm going to do git clone. So Bob is new to my repository. So he wants to clone the repository. So what does he need to do? He needs to go back up here. He needs to take this URL, copy it, go back to the terminal, so git clone, and then type, and then basically paste it in there. And yeah, and in terminal, pasting can easily be done with Command V. Like you don't have to like right click and then paste it. You can just do Command V. Anyways, so with we clone the repository, and when that is done, Bob now has access to my repository and he can modify how he sees fit. So in the meantime, I want to also be making changes as well. So I'm going to open up a new tab on my terminal. And so I got to go back. So I'm in Bob folder right now. I don't want to go back to desktop and then cd into test repo. So let's just say I continue to make a change. So I make another change. So let's see, you know, I think I should add another sentence in README. So I'll say, you know, I'll say hello, PHI, right? Right, and I want to save. So I've made a change and I want to, you know, check the status, see what changes are not yet ready, are not yet staged. And then I'm going to stage them. And then I'm going to commit them, right? Put them into my local tree. Oh, and I opened this up. I don't need that because I'll just go this way. Git commit -m. And I will type in added PHI sentence. Right, boom. And so I've now committed this, and now I want to push it up to the repository. And I've pushed it up to the repository. Now, in the meantime, Bob is also working on a change of his own, right? And so I'm gonna now open this, I'm gonna open up another window. And I'm gonna now pretend like I'm Bob. I'm gonna work on something of my own. And I'm gonna make a change that is gonna conflict with the hello PHI. And so let me see here. So let me just quickly open up a folder. we're going to open up the Bob folder. And I'm going to open up Bob just so that you guys can tell the difference between the two windows so that I don't confuse you. So now Bob is, so in test repo, we have the two files, and in readme.md, we only have the test repo hello world test heading, and we don't have the hello FISOC. But what if I type in, so what if Bob is like, well, what if I want to say, like, Bob is like, well, you know what? I'm going to write down hello, like WLU5, right? Cool. And he's going to save his changes. And, he wants to, he's like, yeah, I'm ready. So I'm going to check out the status. I'm going to check out the status. Oh, sorry, I'm in the wrong. I'm in the wrong folder. I need to cd into the actual repository. So one thing you also need to be aware of is when you're doing these git commands, you have to be in the folder of the repository. So in our case, the folder is going to be called test repo. But in your, like as you make repositories of your own, you're going to want to be in the folder that has the same name as the repository that you made. So in my case, I'm CDing into test repo, which just means CD just means change. And so now that I'm in test repo, I want to check the status of my work, right? Okay. And so it's saying here, your branch is behind origin main by 1 commit and can be fast forwarded. Now you can do git pull here, but what you'll see is GitHub is actually now a little bit, is trying to protect you here, right? So it's saying, uh-oh, your local changes would be overwritten by merge. Now, let's say, so Git is trying to save you here, right? It's just trying to say like, oh, your local changes are going to be overwritten by the merge. You need to figure something out. You need to, like, this is basically Git telling you, you need to communicate with your team to figure out what to do next. Or what happens, let's say Bob doesn't really think about continually updating his, like continually pulling from the repository. And let's say Bob is just like, nah, I want to, like, I'm working right now. I'm on a roll, I want to commit my changes. And he forgets about the git pull, right? So git commit -m, and he's like, added lu-fi sentence, right? Yeah, another thing with git, with commit messages, you want to be concise and you want to be, detailed, right? Like you want to be sweet and short, right? So that way, whoever refers back to that commit, like knows what you did, right? As opposed to like being just like made changes. Well, you made changes, but what changes did you make, right? Like that's kind of like, it's better to have a title that kind of explains. That way it's like quick viewing, you already know what you're doing. Anyway, so and let's say Bob is like, oh, right, let me just quickly check if any changes have been made, right? And he like does git pull. So now we have a merge conflict, right? Because we've already added it into our local tree, and Bob is like, oh, pull it, and basically asks the remote repository with the git pull, hey, can you pull any new changes? With git pulling in the new changes, and Bob having that already in his local machine, you can already sense that the two commits are now going to be competing with each other. And here's where we need to resolve the conflict, right? And so as you can see here, right, VS Code has already kind of already taken the liberty to showcase what the merge conflict looks like. And it's already kind of like highlighting, this is the current change, and this is the incoming change. So incoming change just refers to the remote repository. And whereas head is like the most recent commit that you have made as Bob, right? And so now we have to make a decision. Is Bob correct or am I correct, right? And so let's pretend that Bob is correct. Bob turns out to be the, like me and Bob, we have a meeting and we discuss, well, I feel that hello FISOC is better. And then Bob is like, well, no, Blue-Fi kind of represents the brand better. And I'm like, okay, you know what? You're right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going so Bob is going to accept his change, right? And basically, if I didn't have that option to click the accept the current change, I would just remove everything but the hello Lu-Fi. And so Bob is going to save his changes. And then when we open up the terminal again, Bob is going to now, we're going to just quickly check the status, see what's happening, right? So basically it's like this file had a merge conflict, and now we need to kind of put that like merge resolution into the tree as well. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to do git add dot, right? Save myself some time. I don't have to write out the file name. And then I do git commit dash m, oops. And then I'm going to type in fixed merge conflict, right? Very cool. And now I'm going to push these changes. And now it should be okay. So when I open up my repository and I refresh the page, you're now going to see that when I open up README, you can see that Bob's changes were pushed through, and my changes have been, overwritten basically. And and basically, if you wanted to take a look at the history of the changes, right? We can click on the most recent commit with that code right here. This is like the ID to that latest commit. Or if you want to see the entire history, you can click on the 6 commits, and you can go through every single commit. So for example, this initial one, the most recent one, you can see that on the master, we have changed master. I'm going to get to as well. But so basically on the remote repository, hello Lu-Fi was overwritten with, or sorry, my apologies, hang on. So out of Lu-Fi sentence, basically this is like, basically my changes that I made to the repository have been completely overwritten. And this is now following like what Bob did, right? So Bob wrote down hello Lu-Fi, and then we just also added in another commit to resolve the merge conflict, and we pushed that as well. So now to go back, so basically to recap, so essentially merge conflicts is just going to be, it's going to happen when changes are competing against each other. Basically, if you guys are changing the same file, Git is going to have a hard time determining which change to approve, like which change to kind of declare as the official change. So it's going to be up to you and your team, if you're working with others on your Git repositories, to kind of resolve these merge conflicts. Now, I highly recommend trying this stuff out on your own as well, and just kind of going through the flow as well. And there's a lot of resources that will help you out in terms of like figuring out how to resolve merge conflicts with like minimal issues. So yeah, like it's definitely I recommend every like workflow that I kind of go through tonight that you guys try it out, because it's definitely like you're going to learn a lot more through doing. And so yeah, let us put this away now, and let us go back to our presentation. All right. And so, yeah, now one of the things is branches. Branches are a huge thing in Git because if everyone is working on one particular branch, and so by default on GitHub and Git, we have like a master branch. Now they've renamed it to main, but it's essentially the same thing. Master, main is the same thing. And so branches are a really nice way for you and others collaborating on your project to kind of organize a workflow to kind of like developing. And so in this slide, you can see that like an example of a workflow is you would have a master branch with changes that are going to be ready for production. Like this is code that is being released, and you do not touch this branch. Like this is like off limits. Then you have like a development branch where this is where the code that you're going to be working on and tinkering with, and it gets updated as it goes. And these small little separate branches, they're mainly for like features, right? Like you want to implement a new feature. So you'll create a new branch and you're going to work on that particular branch. And when you're done and you've tested it and it seems that it's working, you're going to merge it back in with the development, as you see here. And like another way to describe branches, it's like an alternative reality for your code at that particular moment in time, right? You'll have a master branch, or it's like this code looks like this on this branch, and then like you have this other branch. It's like, well, what if this happened to the code? And then basically that branch basically shows the code in that direction. But yeah, so branches allow us to kind of make our workflow more organized. You're definitely going to notice this at co-ops and PEPs that you're going to be taking. But again, so companies will, like, basically when you're working on the job, companies will have you like on board, and they will kind of walk you through how they want you to use branches and kind of how you're going to push your changes to their repositories. So definitely don't get overwhelmed with like, oh, like I need to know all this. Like the thing is, they'll walk you through it, and that's like one of the so that you don't end up being that one intern that deletes everything on the first day. So so pretty much, but branches are a fantastic tool. It allows you to organize your code. So some important branch commands, right? Some like basic commands would be like creating a branch, deleting a branch, switching to different branches, and also kind of taking inventory of like what branches you have on your repository. So basically, git branch is that command that shows you what branches are in the repository and what branch you're currently on. And this is a very useful command, especially when you're like creating and deleting branches. So when you want to switch to a different branch, you're going to use git checkout and then the name of the branch. So basically, it's like telling Git, hey, can I check out this branch? Basically, to create a branch, you're going to do the exact same command, but you have this little -b here, which just tells Git, it's like, okay, switch to that branch only if it exists. If it doesn't exist, I want you to create that branch, and then you're going to switch to it. If you want to delete the branch, you're going to want to do the command here, git branch -b, sorry, not b, sorry, -d, and the name of the branch, right? And so this is essentially based on what you see here, you could probably infer what this -d means. It just essentially tells GitHub, it's like, or sorry, Git. It tells Git, hey, this branch that I'm referring to, can you please delete it? And it deletes it. So, and then I'm going to really quickly show you what that looks like. So I'm going to go back to my, so basically to the repository that's me, and I'm going to just create. So when I type in git branch, as you can see here, it's only showing, oh, sorry, it's only showing the main branch or the master branch, depending on what version of Git you have. And the star beside it just represents this is the current branch you're on. So if I wanted to, let's say, make a new branch, right? Git checkout -b, new branch, right? It has now created a branch called new branch, and it switched me over. So now when I type in git branch, you can see that, there's a main branch and there's a new branch, and I am currently on the new branch. Now, if I wanted to switch back to my main, I just easily type in git checkout main, right? And when I do that, it moves me back to main, and it also gives me a status. So it's saying your branch is behind origin main by 2 commits and can be fast forwarded. So I also want to stay ahead of the Git, I also want to pull in most recent changes. So we'll do git pull. And it's going to update my repository, my local repository now with the changes that we've done with Bob's merge conflicts. So, but anyways, basically now, let's say I wanted to delete the branch, right? Like, it's like, I don't need new branch. So I'm going to delete it. But before I delete it, I want to showcase that, sorry, no, that's after this demo. Sorry, my apologies. So let's go ahead and delete the branch. So git branch -d, and we're gonna type in the name of the branch, which is new branch, and it confirms that I've deleted it. So now when I type in git branch, we're back to main being the only branch and that we're on it, right? So now that's basically a little bit of like gist, right? So that's simple. And you can have as many branches as you want. Like we can, if you want, we can do git checkout -b. Let's call it new branch again, right? So we've created a new branch and now we're on new branch. And then I can just, again, we just call this branchception, right? And I've now created a branch on top of the new branch. And then, we could keep going, but essentially, yeah, you can create as many branches as you want from any branch. That's the beauty of it. And it's kind of the reason why Git is adopted by a lot of companies is because you can make as many branches depending on what kind of workflow your company is following, or personal projects. Like if you already have a personal project, you might want to incorporate more branches into your repository to kind of just make workflow. Like you might have an alpha branch, might have a beta branch, so on and so forth. Like there's a lot of possibilities. So let's kind of, so I'll get rid of the branchception, but I will keep new branch because we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about some other commands with branches afterwards. So git branch -d, and we're going to call, branchception. Cannot delete branch. Checked out. Oh, sorry. Because I am on branchception, so I can't delete branchception without moving to another branch, right? Because otherwise I'd be like an orphaned child, similar to like basically, yeah. Like if you delete the branch and I'm on that branch, then I'm kind of just stuck at like memory. Like I'm just out of like I'm kind of out in space. I'm not in the actual Git tree anymore. So anyways, so let us go back to git checkout. Let's go back to new branch. Right, so we're now back to Git. So let me just quickly show you. So you can see how we have 3 branches and I'm currently on the new branch now. So now I'm going to do the git branch -d to delete. And we're going to get rid of branchception. And so it confirms that I deleted it. And now we can basically move on with some other commands. So let me just move this out of the way. So basically these branches that I've made are all done locally. There is no, GitHub has no idea that I've made these like new branch and branchception. But we can push our local branches up to GitHub and let GitHub know actually that we've made some branches that we want to keep track of as well. So we do it with this command, which is the git push command. And we add in 3 new parameters, right? So this -u just essentially is a short form for set up stream. And setting up stream just means like create the branch on the remote and kind of and continually update those two. Like basically, whenever I do git pull, please pull those branches commits down to my local branch, right? So it's like if you'd imagine a stream and you look upstream, that's like your remote repository's branch is upstream, and your local is downstream, basically. Origin is just the default name that is given to a remote repository. And so in our case, it's going to be called origin. For the most part, like, I mean, you're going to, like, this is pretty much de facto standard. Although, depending on, again, if you're if you're working at a particular co-op or something like that, they might have a different repository name, just depending on how many repositories there are in their company. So, but this is just the name of the repository, right? Origin. And then the name of the branch that you want to, like the name of the branch that you want to push upstream. So in our case, we're going to be pushing new branch. So if we use this command, it's going to be git push -u origin, and then the name of the branch being new branch. So let me just quickly show you guys. Oh, actually, I'm going to show you after this snippet here as well. So when we merge branches, right? So let's say we're done with a branch and we want to merge our work into it. We want to make sure that we have all our commits pushed up to the remote repository branch. And on GitHub, we're going to make a pull request to merge our branch with, another branch. In our case, it's going to be with main. And we're essentially, GitHub does this because first of all, you don't want to blindly merge branches without kind of going through like a code review process. And GitHub allows you by doing that with the pull request. You make the pull request, and then whoever has admin capabilities on your repository is going to be able to review this pull request, and you are going to be able to talk with this person about the changes they've made and the reasoning behind, make sure that they're testing, and that testing covers all edge cases. And this is another great way of finding out if there are merge conflicts before there are actual merge conflicts. Like GitHub will be like, I can't merge these automatically because these two pieces of code are conflicting, right? So now I'm going to show you that. So we're going to start off with the branches, right? That's why I left the new branch initially. So so let me just make sure that I'm on new branch. So now what I want to do is I want to do git push -u origin, and now I want to type in the name of the branch. So yeah, what this will do, is going to create the branch up in the repository, and we're going to have, syncing with them. So when I do this, it's going to push that branch up. Now, because there's no changes in that branch, that's why you're going to see this total 0, reused 0. It's basically just saying there's no changes, right? So now when we go to our repository, one second, you're going to notice, so when I refresh the page, you're going to notice that I have two new branches, right? We have the main branch and we have the new branch. I've pushed it up successfully. And so when I want to access that branch, I just click on that. So now I have two branches. Now, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to make a change in the branch, and then we're going to merge it back with main. So let's go back to my VS Code. And this is in the repository that is acting like me. And I'm going to make a sentence here. And I'm going to type in, this is a merge sentence or something like that, right? So, and save it. And when we go back here, I want to do git status. And it's, these changes need to be staged. So I'm going to do git add. And then after that, I'm going to do git commit -m. And I'm going to type in added sentence in branch, right? And so now when I commit this, right, it's committing. So it's committing in the branch called new branch on my local. And when I do git push, it's now going to push that change up to the branch called new branch in the remote repository. And it's completed. And now when I go back to this, it's going to see how it shows now new branch had recent pushes less than a minute ago. And let's just assume that that push was the final push that I made. I'm ready to make a pull request. So what I'll do is I'm going to click on this compare and pull request. Now, if you, like, let's say, for example, you have more and more pushes, you may also want to use this one as well. But this is like already kind of like you click on the button and it already sets up like the comparison. So base being main, this is the branch that we're going to want to merge our branch into. And when we say pull request, that essentially just means new branch is going to be pushing these changes to the branch, to the main branch or master branch. And what main branch is going to be doing is pulling these changes, right? And this is like called a pull request. We're kind of adding one more layer of protection before the main branch takes these changes in, right? So basically my pull request is going to have a title, and in it, I'm going to write down added a sentence in another file.txt. Added a sentence in another file.txt. And then it's like one cool thing in GitHub is like one thing you can do is you can please refer to, and then you can also just really quickly. So for example, you can refer to commits and issues very quickly. So let me just quickly grab this. This is the commit that we want. Actually, hang on, this is the main branch. We want to go to new branch. So in new branch, this commit ID right here is very useful because you can copy this. And when I do the compare and pull request, what I can do is I can just paste this in. And then it's like, so added a sentence, please refer to commit ID to see the changes made. And then essentially when I create this pull request, what it's going to do now is, so essentially GitHub has initially just done a quick check to see if there's no merge conflicts. And as you can see here, there are no conflicts. And essentially, but here, remember how I made the pull request and I wrote down this commit ID? This now commit ID can be referred to. So I can click on this and I can now go to this commit and I can see I've added in these two lines, right? So that's really cool. And it's very quick. Like it allows you to kind of bring in the information that you need very quickly. So you literally just take the ID of the commit, paste it in, and it's already been referenced, right? So it's very nice in that regard. And another way to also take a look at the commits is also just clicking on the commits tab, and it shows you the commit that is going to be merged into main, and also files changed. But this is also just another quick way to reference material in GitHub. And this also works with issues. So if you wanted to refer to an issue, you can just type in the issue ID, similar to a commit ID, to refer to that. So there's a lot of cool things that GitHub can provide you, especially those referrals, like references. Now, because I am also the admin on this Git repo, I'm going to be able to merge in my pull request. So let's say, for example, I absolutely love the sentence. So I'm going to be like, love the changes, keep it up, right? Something like that. Usually, oh, sorry, not question mark, keep it up, right? So what I'll do is I'll first comment, right? I'll say, I love the changes, keep it up, and then I'm going to merge in the pull request. And this is essentially, by merging, I'm creating another commit on main where the two branches are merging, right? And that's going to be a commit as well. So let me just confirm the merge. And yeah, so pull request successfully merged and closed. Now, this was a pretty straightforward process because I am the one making the pull request and the merge. But let's say, for example, I wasn't the one who has the admin privileges, right? So someone else is going to be reviewing this pull request, and they're going to be the one pressing the merge pull request, and the ones making the comments. Otherwise, I'm just waiting for the result, right? And then we'll go back and forth between the comments and stuff, kind of just like explaining my changes, or even like a Skype call or WebEx call with like someone else and just kind of talking it through it, and then ultimately making decision whether to reject the pull request or to merge the pull request. And when you merge the pull request, basically you can delete the branch afterwards. If you don't need the branch anymore, you can close the branch. And so we'll delete the branch just to show how that works. So I've just deleted the branch. So now when I go back into the code tab, you can see I only have one branch left. And when I click on pull requests, the pull request has been closed, right? And yeah, so that's essentially how you would do a merge on GitHub. Let me and we can move forward with the next part. Let me just quickly open up the presentation. So now the last thing that I want to talk about is undoing changes. So let's say you've made some mistakes, right? And there's a few stages that you can make some, like reverting some changes. But essentially be very careful when you do when you undo the changes, because there are things that you could do that like mess up work for everyone else. And you could ultimately lose your work, you know, like let's say, for example, you spent like a week, like a good week or two on like this like particular bug, and you just fixed it and you messed up, like, and you realize, oh snap, I'm failing some tests, and you like undo a change. And it like, you could end up like, for example, what if you accidentally type out git reset hard and you deleted all the uncommitted changes? And so, yeah, like be very careful when you deal with this. But essentially, there are four stages. And I kind of gonna go through every stage. So basically, the first stage is like you haven't made any, you haven't even staged your changes. This is basically you're just working on stuff, and you haven't even done the git add command, right? What you can do is you can use the git checkout -- file name with a space between each here. And what this will do is it will delete the uncommitted changes or the unadded changes permanently, right? Like you start from the beginning of like where the previous commit started. Or if you want to just basically annex every change that you've made, you can just do git reset hard. And this will delete all of the uncommitted changes from all of the files. Git stash is one way of kind of keeping your changes and going back. So this is also really useful. And this is like, I'm going to go into a little bit more details. I'm going to show you this as well. So now the second stage, let's say, for example, I have added a few files, right, to be staged and ready to be committed. Now, you can do git reset head file name. So this is just basically like unstaging the changes from a single file. Like let's say I've added, like I did the git add dot, and I remember, oh snap, I shouldn't be committing my I believe it's the package.json. So for example, like it's like this package tracker file. Like especially when you're dealing with npm, like the node package manager and stuff like that, there are some files that you don't want to continually commit into, right? So you want to quickly do git reset head and then the name of the file. So it's just going to unstage that file. And then if you want to just do all the files, just do git reset. Now, if you have committed changes, right? So this is still all local. And this is where I recommend, when you're working with your stuff on local, make sure that you are careful and you know what you're doing, right? Like don't blindly commit changes just because you might make a mistake. And if you've already pushed to the repository, like pushed up to remote, that's where things get really messy. So I recommend you double check, even triple check your stuff before you go pushing, right? Because it becomes more disastrous up in the remote. So like this is a third stage where you have committed changes, but you have not pushed just yet. So if you let's say, for example, you forgot to add a file to be staged, or you wanted to quickly change something in one of the files, you just basically git add the file name that you forgot, and you're gonna commit -- amend. So this is a really useful attribute. It basically kind of just, it opens up the commit message again if you wanted to change the message as well. But it also takes in these new git adds, and it bundles it up again in one commit. So it's really nice in that regard. Now, if you have to, go back a commit, so if you need to just go back to unstaging, like just basically uncommit something, then this next command right here, the git reset soft, starting from head and then go back and commits. So head just refers to the top, like the most recent commit that you have made on your git tree. And basically this like ~n just means, okay, from that head pointer, yeah, you can imagine head as a pointer actually, and head just points to the most recent commit. And so when you do ~n, so when you go ~1, you're going back one commit. And so if we imagine like an array with a starting index of 1, that's going to be that most recent commit. Then when you do ~2, you're going back that most recent commit and then the next one. And then ~3, you go most recent, its parent, and then the parent of that parent, and then and just basically keep going down depending on how much you want. Now, the difference between soft and hard, so that's two variations of these attributes. Soft is just basically you're going to undo the commits, but you want to keep the changes as if they were unstaged changes. Now, hard is going to be more so kind of like go back n number of commits and then just delete all the changes that I made. This is like more so like if you just want to completely start from scratch again, like you can do so with this command. Now, if you want to, now this is the fourth stage. This is where, so if you push something up to a repository and you realize, oof, I shouldn't have pushed that. This is where you want to act fast because if someone pulls your changes, so if someone pulls that change and then they start working from that and then you undo that push, you can see where that person's repository tree on their local machine is going to be a little bit skewed and there's going to be a lot of confusion. So what you want to do is if you push something and you just realize, oh, that's not what I want, you're going to want to do basically this command, git push -f. So this is basically saying force push it because there's going to be warnings that GitHub is going to throw at you, but you want to suppress those warnings essentially. Origin is the name of the repository. And then from head, now this this like I don't even know the name of this thing, but basically this like pointy thing is just short form for saying, give me the parent of the node that give me the parent of this particular node, right? And head would be the most recent commit in that remote repository. And basically this whole section right here is just saying, okay, so what I want you to do is I want you to push the parent of the most recent commit and put it in front, essentially rendering this guy like a stray commit that garbage collection is going to pick it up and then get rid of. So yeah, you're essentially just putting the parent of the most recent commit, which is the push that you did that you want to undo, and then you're going to take that parent and you're going to put it in front and kind of redo everything, like undo basically everything. But make sure you do that ASAP, right? Like you don't want someone to pull those changes that you don't want to push and then end up with like a mess in your head, so basically that's why I recommend make sure you know what you're doing and pushing before you actually do the push. But anyways, this command still exists if you need to, do and undo. So I'm going to now go through that. So basically, let's start with, let me just quickly check the status. So new branch, basically because I pushed all my changes. What we want to do now is I'm going to open up my VS Code. and I'm going to, now I'm going to be in the repo that is pretending to be me. And we're going to just make another, like this is a, like another sentence, right? So I'm going to save this. And now I have, so I have a change. Now, let's just say, you know what? I don't really want this change anymore. So what I'll do is I'm going to just do, and Git kind of gives you this kind of like command structure already here. So that way, if you forget, it's right here. It's like quick to pick up. And so yeah, so let's do git checkout -- and the name of the file. So I'm just going to take the name, copy it, paste it. And so as you can see in Visual Studio Code, you can see that it's disappeared. I've removed it completely. So now what I want to do is like, again, so this is another sentence. And we'll do, so git status. And it should show, hey, I've got a change that has not yet been staged. So we're going to add that file, right? And so now we have staged the command, right? And so what we want to do now, sorry, just let me move this out of the way. What we want to do now is we want to, basically, we want to, let's say, for example, I don't want to have that staged anymore and I want to bring it back. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do git reset head. So starting from the head, I want to basically reset that commit, or sorry, staging. So the file name, which is going to be another file, right? So unstage, so it confirms that I've unstaged those changes, and then we can confirm with the git status command. And you can see change is not staged for commit, and it's showing right here the modified, right? That needs to be staged again. So let's say I've staged and I've committed, and I type in a message, revert changes sentence, or something like that. Oh, snap, I pressed enter too early. So Control C, I will just redo that. So I've now committed that. Let's say now, oh snap, I don't want to commit that actually. So let me go back, you know. So we'll do the reset. Hang on, sorry. We'll do the reset. Essentially, we'll do the reset with the soft. That way you can see that, like, basically it essentially unstages everything and we're back before the commit. So git reset -- soft head, and then tilde, and let's go back 1 because that's what we want, right? So now it's uncommitted this. And so when I do git status, you should see that these changes are staged and they're ready to be committed. So now let's say, for example, I also want to, so let's go back to committing. I'm going to show you the amend. So another commit, right? And so it's committed. Now, let's say, for example, oh snap, I forgot to change this. Ha ha ha, ha, right? Silly me, right? Anyways, so now the thing is, when I do git status, it's now showing, okay, so these changes are not staged for commit. And it's like, but I already have one commit, right? Like, shoot, what do I do? So what I'll do is I'll do git add. And when I do status, it's ready to be committed. Now, instead of committing, like, instead of pushing this commit that I already have, let's amend to the current commit that I have. So we'll just do git commit -- amend, and then it'll open up this. But because I've already added in the file, what I'll do is I'll just do WQ, and it's now if I do git status, it's included that it's included the readme.md file in the current commit that I already have. So this is really useful if you forget to add, like if you forget to add a particular change, you can change it and then amend your commit. So it's really nice. I recommend that. Like I've used it a lot too. So, so now the last thing, let's say for example, I push this change and I just realized, oh no, silly me, I've put the ha 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 and I shouldn't have. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna quickly do the, what's it called, the git, like basically I'm gonna do this git push, force push it, origin, head, and then we're gonna refer to the parent of the head, which is the commit before the push that I just did on the remote repository, and the name of the branch. And so we are on the new branch. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to type in the branch, new branch. So when I do that, I have now undone the change. And you're going to see here, basically on the new branch, you can see that I undid, basically it doesn't show up in the remote repository because I had just undone the push. So this is a really useful command, but again, I highly recommend you double check your code before you push the remote repositories. And yeah, so that's for the undoing changes. And let's go, I just want to cover one more command, which is the git stash command. So this is a really useful command. So if you need to switch branches, but you have uncommitted changes, you have changes that you're kind of still working on, but you don't want to get rid of them because switching branches ultimately means your data is going to, like your changes are going to be lost. Or you want to kind of undo some commits, but you want to keep those changes, right? Like you've worked so hard, but you don't want to delete them, right? So git stash kind of works in a way to take those uncommitted changes and store them on a stack somewhere in memory, right? And basically you can stash as many changes as you want and apply them somewhere else whenever you need it. And so, yeah, and so it's two very simple commands. Git stash stores the changes, and then git stash pop applies the changes back. So, and it'll, it goes from the top of the, so you pop from the top of the stack. So if you've stashed changes at the very bottom that you want to apply, you're going to have to kind of keep popping. So anyways, basically, let me just quickly show you what that looks like. And so when we do git status, it's going to show that I have no changes. So I have the commit. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to go back to, sorry, let me just move this out of the way. Oh, and let me quickly show you. So let me just undo my commit. We're going to reset soft because I want this change still. Head tilde 1. And so when we check with the status, we have, yeah, so these changes are ready to be committed. And let's just say, for example, I don't want to lose these changes, right? So I'll just do git stash. So it is taken these changes and it's put it into a stack. And now when I do git status, you can see it's up to date with the remote repository. The changes that I have are stored somewhere else. Now, if I want to apply them again, even better, what I can do is I can do, so git checkout main. So we're going to the main branch and I want to git stash, oh, sorry, not that, pop. Oh, and I have a merge conflict, oops. But essentially you can take these changes and you can apply it wherever you want, but you will run into the issue of merge conflict as well. So if you do, you're going to have to deal with it, right? Like you're going to have to choose which changes are correct and which changes are not. But essentially that stash is very useful, because if you have changes and you need to make let's say, for example, your manager reaches out to you and says, hey, I need you to work on this particular other feature. So what you'll do is you'll stash your changes, move to the feature branch, start working on that, make your commits and pushes, and then switch back to the branch and then git stash pop. It's quite useful. And then, yeah, so that's pretty much kind of, let me just make this full screen again. And that's pretty much most of the Git workflows that you're going to be doing at both work and on your personal projects. Now, one thing I recommend you guys go out there and make projects of your own. Try pushing, try merging, try forking different people's projects, and try playing around with Git and try playing around with GitHub. And so Git-SCM is a great, fantastic resource for you guys to take a look into. They have a book that covers the basics of Git, the more advanced things that you can do with Git. And then to learn more about GitHub and how to use it, you can go onto GitHub Guides. It's an awesome resource, and they have very simple to understand tutorials. And they assume that you have like you start from like zero knowledge of Git and GitHub, and they build you up, which is fantastic. And I highly recommend you guys take a look at this. And I am going to hand over the mic to Abdul. Abdul has some announcements. And I thank you everyone for being patient with me. I know it's definitely over an hour, but thank you very much. I hope you got something out of it. And Abdul, the spotlight's yours, man.
Thanks, Ilya. I really appreciate the presentation. There's some things I actually didn't know myself. So just a quick, just not with anybody else's time, just a quick note. We're hiring for a graphics designer position. The application is due this Saturday by 11:59 p.m. So if you do want to apply, go to our website at WLU5 and click on the link tree in the bio, and you'll see the application link right there. Also, could you go to the next slide, please?
Yep.
Please sign in for the event. So for those of you who are trying to be general members of the club, don't forget to sign in. We also send the recording and the slide deck to those who sign in. The recording is gonna be like out there, but the slide deck I'm gonna have to send it to specific people because I can't just generally send it to everyone that is in the club. So please sign in, and we'll start the Kahoot in like a minute. So we should be done.
Oh yeah,
the sign-in link has been posted in the chat, I guess, by Brianna. Or you could use your iPhone and just scan the barcode, and you're good to go. Okay. For the Kahoot, we're doing a prize, so please wait if you want to partake in Kahoot. But if you don't, you're free to leave. Except my execs. Don't leave if you're an exec member. Okay. Could you stop sharing your screen? I'm gonna share the Kahoot.
Oh yeah, for sure. Sorry about that.
Yeah, no worries. Sorry. I have to look for my browser here.
Yeah, if anyone has any questions, like stuff like that, feel free to reach out to me. I'll put out my what's it called? LinkedIn. Just feel free to reach out to me there.
Okay, sure. I have forgotten how to use Kahoot. One-on-one. Oh, it's plastic. Okay. I have a lot of J's.
So the questions progressively get harder. Just heads up.
No, it's hard. It's not that hard. It's not that hard. It's not like something complicated. It's a 20-second timer, so everyone should be good. Okay. Oh, exec members can participate. Just know you're not winning any prizes. That goes to you too. Not sure. All right, I'm going once. Oh yeah, and you must also be very student to win a prize. Are we supposed to memorize every command if we're in the club? No, you're not supposed to memorize every command. It's just being familiar with it and just understanding what it does. I just know that it's out there.
Yeah, like if anything, like just me is going to help you when you're searching up resources and stuff like that. You're already aware, like, oh, git add, like what is git add, and you just type in git add, and then you'll have a lot of resources online that will like cover that and stuff like that.
Exactly. I know some of the commands off the top of my head, but I usually use like my ID because I code in VS Code like earlier. I use my ID to like help me out with like some of the commands that you might some of the commands that you use regularly, especially with VS Code you can. VS Code, I know Atom 2 is really good at using connecting. Atom also has like a really good compatibility with like GitHub, Android Studio, not so much. I learned that yesterday, but I'm gonna start the Kahoot now. Okay, I'm going once, going twice, going 3 times. Adios. All right, let's go. I just realized there's no music anymore. It's 10 seconds. Okay. I know the answer.
All right, good. All right, very nice.
You call it repo a lot of times this night. That's why.
Yeah, but it's just like short term. Like, what's the formal name?
Yeah. With 2 more answers.
So yeah, like the repository hosted on GitHub. So it's the remote, right? The repository on GitHub, when you're dealing, like playing around with it, you're referring it as the remote repository.
Actually, I don't know who's first.
So now, what is the term used to refer to the repository hosted on your computer?
Oh.
Awesome.
Oh, Jordan's on fire. Please tell me Jordan isn't. Oh, why?
So yeah, what do you create on GitHub when there is a bug?
Okay. Technically, you do create a branch to fix that issue, I guess.
Yeah, true. I should have probably maybe made it a little bit more specific. Oh yeah.
Oh shit, no. No.
Yeah, or pull request is what you make.
Yeah.
What was the command used to copy?
Yeah, so
okay. Git copy also. I actually know what that does, but okay.
no, it's just like I was just trying to think of like similar sounding words that would like, you know, throw people off.
Okay. What is the command used to uncommented changes when switching?
It's a very useful. It's a very useful command.
Yeah, especially when you're working with a team. Yep.
Yeah.
Git stash pub just removes the last one,
Yeah.
and applies it to your current repository, your current branch. Jordan is on fire. I see you.
Yeah. So remember, what's something you do to continually stay up to date with the remote? So a git pull. So every once in a while, you want to do a git pull to kind of get the most recent changes.
Exactly.
Yeah, so specific file. Remember, what's a specific file command to stage it?
Okay. Thomas is coming up. Let's see you, Thomas.
All right, so now they're going to get really hard. So this is a command I used quite often in the presentation. So hope that gives a hint.
Yeah, get status. That's good. And I think this is
12 of 13. Yeah, so this is the last one.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, so when you forget to add a file, so this is the amend attribute that I was talking about. When you like, oh, it's like you forget, oh, I forgot to add this file. This file's changes. So you just do the git add and then the name of that file. And then after git commit -- amend, that would add it into the commit.
And the very last question.
This is the most hardest question of them all. What is my name? What is my name?
Oh, by the way, I changed his name on the Zoom call. Your name is Speaker now.
Oh.
Oh, 10 10%. That's not bad. Okay. So the winner is our top place. 12 out of 13. Joe. That's dope. Tim. Then Jordan. Yeah. 13 out of 13. Oh, that's dope. Thomas and Bovette. But so is Jordan an exec? Just so I know. I am not. Okay. So just message us on IG and just take a screenshot of like the Kahoot, the congratulations on Kahoot and send it to us on IG and we'll communicate with you how we're gonna send you a gift card. Okay. Wasn't top place. Adnan. Yeah, Adnan, I'm disappointed in you. Yep. All right. Thank you guys very much for showing up. Yeah, on IG. Thank you guys for showing up. Please remember to sign in. And yeah, that's it for the event. My exec, please stay behind. I know like it's been a long night. I just want to introduce someone to you guys, okay? And Savio, could you stay behind if you're still here? He is not. Okay. Okay. So everyone else except the speaker, And my exec team, everyone else, please could you leave some chat? Did you ask other terms? Nasha, could you help Adnan with the Discord stuff? Okay, speaker, Adnan, Brianna, Zane, Josh. Okay, I'm gonna move Josh to Joseph. I'm gonna also move you to the waiting room. Okay, you left. All right, bet. Yeah, Ilya, thank you. I really appreciate you like showing up for the event. It was the presentation was on the long side, but I really appreciate you like taking the time out of your day to do it. I know like it wasn't easy to like really go through it and like concentrate. It's a really tough topic to talk about.
Yeah. It's just there's so much like I don't know. I figured kind of going through the Git workflow, like the Git workflow, more than just the GitHub. Just because the thing is, like for example, where I'm working at, I'm dealing with a repository that's on like hosted by our own company server, right? So the way I connect to it is much different than GitHub, right? So I don't know. Like I felt like it's more important that people know what Git is and what you can do with Git as opposed to GitHub. But like I mean, yeah, I tried to include GitHub as well. So.
Yeah. The pairing of like Git and GitHub is just so that people are familiar with a remote repository in general. I personally, when I started using Bitbucket. I just start with GitHub. So
yeah.
Give me a second.
Yeah, like if you guys have any like critiques, just let me know. Just feel free to roast.
Okay. Yeah, no worries, no worries. I'm gonna have to let you go for now, and I'll probably communicate with you later. Sure. I just want to talk to members of my exec team and like just round things up. Okay.
Yeah, sounds good. Sounds good.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for coming. You're amazing.
No worries, guys. Thank you guys for having me. All right. See you guys.
Bye.
See you later.
Hey, Daniel. Okay. How you guys feeling tonight?
I want a KO.
I know.
I didn't have coffee this morning. Oh, you don't even realize